Hey guys, how's it going? It's Yoko from Japan. Welcome back to my channel. So it's really nice to be back again. I actually have to hurry because my husband will get home soon, and I just wanted to quickly chat with you, like a secret meeting with you, you know what I mean? So let's just dive in. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the speech that Vice President Mike Pence gave at CPAC, where I wanted to be so badly. Guys, this year it was a schedule thing. Next year, guys, we want to be there. Make it happen! So I've been checking some of the speeches that were made at CPAC, and I really liked Laura Ingram, that's the pronunciation. Her speech was good, like a nice flip of logic, you know, and it's so true though that, like, especially the part where she was talking about how Democrats were the one that brought the country into wars and so on. If I understood that correctly, that's what we Japanese conservatives are learning. Like, it's our new common sense. Over the past few years, our critics here started to talk about all the true history that conservative people in the US actually didn't want wars. Your type of people, right? Like, conservatives in America, they didn't want to go into war and so on, including against Japan. So that's like eye-opening for everyone here, you know? So it's so interesting that we shouldn't judge on one country just because the final outcome of the political decision that everyone makes, you know? Every country has lots of different political power and they fight inside, right? And so we shouldn't judge, and that's why we need intelligence. But anyway, I want to check out the one with the this judge something that I can't really remember the pronunciation of, the female judge. I put that video into like watch later, you know, so I'll be checking out. Of course I need to watch the one of President Trump, but that's like super duper long, right? Some Japanese volunteer people kindly translated everything that President Trump said, and they also translated the one of Vice President Mike Pence. So I read the Pence one. I haven't read the Trump one because it seems really long. I will get on it, but anyway, enough intro. Okay, so the speech that Vice President Mike Pence made, my husband and I were actually discussing on it, and my husband told me or taught me something cool, so I thought that I would share with you. Did you hear that speech or did you read about it? What did you guys think? Did you notice anything weird? Did you notice anything unnatural or a little strange? My husband was pointing out that it was really strange that Vice President Pence didn't make any remarks on China, even though like, it's Pence. He is that guy that made the historical or legendary speech, I would say, that was strongly against China last October. So what I mean is, we all know what's in the head of Mike Pence, that how he sees China and what kind of information he has, the view that he has. We were like, woohoo, Mike Pence, like he said it, way! And that was how we Japanese and our fellow Asians felt. But this time at CPAC, even though he mentioned all the other big problems, including North Korea, he didn't mention anything about China. And me and my husband, we were like, wait, what? Why? And of course there are some negotiations going on, and that can be it. But the thing is that in politics, what's important is, of course, what has been said, right? We need to check all the comments made by all the people involved. At the same time, what's as important as that is that what hasn't been said or what wasn't said. In this case, you know, as I said, it's Vice President Mike Pence, that guy that made that speech before, and he didn't make any remarks on China this time. It was very unnatural, it was very strange, and we could get a hunch of something intentional going on. Of course, there are lots of possibilities. The very first thing that comes to my mind is that, as I said, there are negotiations going on, and especially the President Trump and Xi Jinping will meet soon, right? But so I guess that he didn't really want to touch China because it could affect the negotiations negotiations, but it's against China. As I said, it's politically, everything is a message. I'm not trying to criticize, you know, I'm just stating what's happening, that it could be the sign of compromise that's coming, you know what I mean? So let's look at diplomacy of both two countries, the US and China. As for diplomacy, President Trump has been doing such an amazing, fantastic job, even seen by somebody overseas, you know? He's doing great, especially against North Korea. And of course, those who are against President Trump wants to criticize for not making the deal with North Korea. But I'm like, wait a second. The aim is not a settlement. The aim of the negotiation with North Korea is to denuclearize North Korea. So if that's not happening, of course there's no deal and the sanctions will keep happening, right? But the people nowadays, man, people in this generations don't have patience, right? Everything happens so fast nowadays with technology, so maybe that's part of it, that people don't have patience, but people judge too quickly. People just want results right away, even though both sides want something, and it's like negotiate. It takes time, you know. Of course you can't wait forever, and that's true as well, but what I'm trying to say now is that people are not very familiar with what happens in political field, and so they just want any events that they can visually see to be convinced that their choice of politicians was correct. You know what I'm trying to say? That they want jiseki. You know, jiseki, I don't know how to say that in English, but future Yoko will put the translation. Of course, President Trump will not compromise in North Korea. For that, I thank our Prime Minister Abe as well, that he is definitely working together with President Trump. Their partnership is our lifesaver. But the thing is that because North Korea is not listening like right away, of course, like it's about life or death for them, so it's difficult against North Korea. But for that, President Trump needs something to show to his citizens, right? That something visible, something easy to understand for the citizens so that they can vote for him again. So it's natural to think that Trump administration might compromise a little bit against China. Is the possibility that we are seeing here in Japan. Not just my husband and I, it was actually written on newspaper as well, like here, right? And inside they have like an editorial, you know, like here, like shucho, like this is editorial, and I read that at the end of this article, this is about China, you know. It's like, don't forget to be cautious against China and their strategy and so on. And this newspaper company Sankei is saying that they asked President Trump to not compromise at the summit with China. We don't want the US to compromise against China, but it might happen, and that's what we're seeing here. So as I said, Vice President Pence didn't mention China in his speech, and just like that, Chinese side, they had this event, National People's Congress, yeah. And what's interesting about that event is that they didn't say Made in China 2025 this time. It's their dream, it's their ambition, you know, Made in China 2025. But they didn't say that. Of course, they kind of expressed that, but they didn't use that term. And that is a political message. That's almost equals to Vice President Pence not mentioning anything about China in his speech. And we can see like both sides kind of, you know, thinking about each other, like trying not to affect each other, right? Like common sense speaking. But as for China, the GDP growth target is lower than last year. As for China, it's their culture, I would say, to announce the numbers better than they really are, you know. If I say directly, they lie. Even with that in mind, their GDP growth target is lower. It might be like an angry number, you know, like because of the US, we can only make it this far and that's our aim or something like that. But at the same time, I think it's really realistic that even they can't even lie. Like that's how much the US is pressuring China, because If, for example, the tariff argument, if both sides impose 100% to each other, the US wins, right? And China knows it, so they know, of course, they're not stupid, you know? They know that they will lose against the US. And with that in mind, it's China, man. Like, Chinese people are not stupid. Some people misunderstand me, you know, like, I do criticize China a lot, like, but what I'm criticizing is the communists in China, you know, the Chinese Communist Party and their dictatorship and their expansionism and so on. And I'm not talking about like ordinary people, even though they are censored and they can be very biased, and I want them to see the real truth. But when I talk about China, I'm talking about communist China, and that is a great difference. So anyway, and Chinese people are not stupid. They can see at their workplace or like life in general, they can see when the country is weakening, right? Even though they are investing in a lot of things. And what happens in China is often is that just like in any other country except for Japan, people riot. You know, they protest and they riot, and the Chinese Communist Party tries to stop them, and the riots can spread around in China, right? Like entirely. And when that happens, the Chinese Communist Party will be in danger, like as for their leadership or dictatorship. And that's what they fear. So for them also, the Chinese Communist Party wants some kind of compromise with the US so that they can appeal to their citizens also. If both US and China let each other win a little bit by compromising to each other, that can bring something, you know, something that people kind of get distracted by to be pleased with, and so those both leaders can kind of be put in a good place. And that is what we're focusing on from here in Japan, that we don't want compromise, but this is politics, that you cannot win in every part, right? We do need to compromise here and there sometimes, but against China, you know, here's what I want Americans to understand is that America is really advanced. Like, you guys are number one, like, especially if you see the GDP in the world, you guys are number one, like, no doubt. Everyone can see that. And Japan is tagging along, even though the size is different, but Japan, it comes to in the third place, right? The US, China, it's Japan. And especially because I understand American culture or how people are, you know, I can see that we are both advanced. Of course, the minority people are suffering, but the majority or the middle class, our society is very mature in a way. You have lots of complaints in politics, but look at your everyday life. That you have a job, you have a place to live, you have great foods and all this industry and everything, and your political system works for the most part. And when I look at China, what they're insisting, like politically, especially their dream, like expansionism and all these arguments that they bring up, like historical disputes and territorial disputes, which is along their strategy, I get the impression that they're living like in the extended version of the World War II era, if you know what I mean. Like as for Japan, we lost a war and we surrendered, and we, like, it was like a reset, right? Like society-wise. But China is just carried on, and they're still living in that sense, if you know what I mean. Even though we are all living on the same earth and same world, I cannot help but noticing the difference of the level, or I don't know if I should say level because it's kind of rude, but there's this huge difference that we seem to be blinded on. China, of course, is a big country, and the city places are definitely like advanced, and their technology especially, like, it is advancing, even though they're stealing the technology and so on. As a result, they are advancing themselves, and that can trick Westerners. But I want you guys to know that they are, like, for example, the bigger version of North Korea. You know, the Kim families are insane. How far gone Kim families are, right? And somehow you change your mindset when it comes to China, and you misunderstand China as if they are one of us, like advanced countries, like developed countries. But no, they are more like North Korea, you know, the dictatorship. I'm not talking about Chinese people in general. The Chinese communists leadership is just like North Korea, just in a different shape and a different size, you know. So that's something that I want to warn the US about, and it's not coming from like an order, you know. I'm not giving you an order. I am that desperate as Japanese that you cannot, it's like a mafia war, you know, that you just have to keep pressuring China, or else they will just, they are that ambitious because they are still living in that era. So you cannot send any wrong message. You cannot show any weakness or whatsoever that they could stab, because they will come to you. They are smart when it comes to stuff like that. So I know that the US is now all getting focused on the election in 2020, but for countries like China, Russia, North Korea, for countries like that, when you go inward politically, that's when your enemies will come to you. That's because you are so inward and you're not very aware of what's happening outside. So that's when you really need to be cautious. And the exact same thing can be said about Japan. We have a national election coming in July, and before that, actually next month, or at the end of this month too in some places, but we have a local election, and so we go inward, and so we get distracted by what matters to us, of course, and that's natural. That's something we should do, but we also have to be very, very aware, and we have to put it in our first priority that we have to be clear that we will not give the hegemony to China, right? We need to stop the expansionism of China in any way possible, even if it needs strength. That's all I have to say in this video. I think my battery is actually dying, so I should go now. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you want more contents from me, like free contents like this, please subscribe to this channel, and also support me on Patreon. This video making and also talking to you, like all these political activities, everything I do in politics is what I do. Like it's my job, and you can see how broke I am. So if you want to have an ally in Japan, please support me on Patreon. Yeah! And also, please share my videos to your friends, families, random people, somebody you hate, whatever. That'll be fun. Politically, Japan needs more exposure, so yeah, that'll be great if you can help us. So anyway, have a great day, guys. Thanks for listening till the end. You are awesome. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!